I'm Dr. Joseph Wittering, and today I have Brian here. And I think it's really important to hear from all different types of people that are having these post-acute withdrawal, drug neurological injuries, because it hits all different people, different stages of life, all that kind of stuff. So we're gonna talk to Brian. We're gonna learn about his story. And the interesting thing about Brian is he's actually the first person that I've talked to that's developed a neurological injury, post-acute withdrawal from a Z drug, from a non-benzodiazepine hypnotic. These are things like Ambien, Sonata, Lunesta, and so I think that is kind of unique from my perspective about his story. And so, yeah, I hope this is helpful. Ryan, why don't you go and introduce yourself and I guess tell us your story. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate the work that you do and this the voice that you give to people when you're a psychiatrist. So it's great that
Mhm.
like you have like a certain level of you have the badge, like that people are
Yeah.
gonna listen.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have that because oftentimes we're just this weird little group of lepers on the internet, like trying to figure out what's going on with us.
Mhm.
Very nice. But anyways, yeah. I um I did. I think maybe the reason that I got protracted from the Z drug is because I had previous like benzo cold turkeys. So I think maybe that had something to do with it because in 2019 I cold turkeyed off of Xanax. I was like 1 milligram a day or something, and I had a terrible withdrawal. But I was back to normal in like a month.
Mhm.
Uh, but it was a really bad withdrawal. And I thought I had learned my lesson. Well, I mean, technically I did, right? Because when I was prescribed a Z drug later, which was April of 2021, from all the research I did, it wasn't a benzo. And like I
Mhm.
saw the internet and I was looking for stories of withdrawal. Because you can find a lot of like, nasty benzo withdrawal stories online. Even if they're not protracted, it's pretty common. It's not,
Mhm.
as hidden as there's not as many protracted stories online. But so I started taking them thinking that like it wasn't a benzo. They're called a non-benzodiazepine. But I just remember taking it and being like, this feels exactly the same.
Yeah.
Like, and I should have realized that. I mean,
So
I
did,
think like,
did you go into it like afraid of benzos? You're like, Xanax really kind of kicked my ass last time. I don't want any part of that. I want
yeah,
something that's not like that. Okay.
exactly. Yeah, I had my warning. I can't think of the right term, but I had like my warning lights on, or I can't think of the correct analogy, but
Sure. Yeah.
I was taking them, and I remember it was somewhat helpful. The reason I got prescribed them too is because like it was during COVID and I was working remote, um, and I had like a weird schedule. I was doing like COVID contact tracing stuff during the pandemic, and I was working from like 11 to like 8 or something like that. So it's kind of like move like when I got off, it was like dark. Like I think a lot of like it was just a normal weird reaction to like working from home, and
I mean, the amount of people that I'm actually seeing in my practice right now who are like, I never touched, this stuff. COVID happened. Either they lost their job or they became busier than ever and they ended up on a benzo or a Z drug. I mean, it was such a stressful time, that it's a story I keep on hearing. And it doesn't surprise me at all that you also kind of got snared up in this during like I guess the upheaval that COVID was back in 2020.
yeah, like remote
Yeah.
works really because like I don't know. Do you work remote, right? Do you work?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if you experience this, but like it's almost like when you get off of remote work, it's like you're still at home, and it's like you just go like turn on another screen. It like,
Mhm.
doesn't know if it's like at work or not. You know what I mean? Like when you go into work, like when you get off, your brain like switches like modes. Like say if you take the bus or you get in the car, it's like you put on the
Mhm.
music and like you chill out, and it's like when you're doing remote, you're like on a computer for like 9 hours, and then you're done, and you're just like in the kitchen, and it's like you feel like it's like you know
Yeah,
what I mean. There's less of like the like work not work. It all kind of like melds together. That's how it felt for me. Maybe I
yeah.
mean I'm sure there's I actually enjoyed it a lot, and there was probably better ways of coping with like
Hmm.
schedule. Especially getting off that late, but that mixed with I was also vaping a lot too, which I realized like that it's super stimulating, so it would keep me up. I'd be watching TV until like 2, sometimes 3, just nonstop vaping, and that was never addressed.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
something that can get out of control quickly when you're working from home,
yeah,
Yeah.
yes, these things like all at once. And I was having some like rough nights of sleeping. It wasn't even really that bad. I mean, like looking back, like I would take that any day over this, like because
Sure.
um it wasn't even that I wasn't even like not sleeping enough. It's just that I was sleeping at really weird hours, like 3 a.m.
Because you're on that vape pen at, 2
Yeah,
a.m. in the morning.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
right, stuff like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, grabbed them, and then
So do you see a family doctor, or do you just see like a nurse practitioner or like a psychiatrist? Who wrote the script?
it was so I had been like I don't think I'd use this doctor. I was on some insurance, and they assigned me to a family doctor um,
Okay.
that I had never used before. So I just went in and just immediately he was like, "Here's a script for Ambien, and if you want more than a month, just let me know. And if you need something in the daytime, let me know for anxiety." And I said nothing, anxiety,
Yeah.
zero. And he was like,
Wow. Okay.
he was like pushing benzos and to like continue this drug, which we weren't even at that point yet.
And this is the first visit, right?
First time I've ever met this person.
And how long was the appointment?
Like 5 minutes.
Okay. Did you get any counseling on, hey, probably shouldn't be on this long term, use it for like a week or two. That's about it. This could get you in trouble long term. That cause dependence, anything like that.
No, he just said if I wanted. I think he said like, you're only supposed to take this for 3 weeks, but if you want to continue, just let me know. Something like that. Like it wasn't
Okay.
like he didn't tell me like what could happen if it
Sure.
continued. And it's
Damn.
almost
All
like,
right. Yeah.
yeah, it's almost like he knew that I was gonna start getting interdose withdrawals because he was already pushing a daytime anxiety medication, and I said nothing about anxiety. Um, it was like if you need something in the day for the daytime too, like for he said something. He was like, if you need something like for the daytime like that with his hand. I don't know what that meant. Are you
Yeah.
anxious? Like, for the daytime, let me know. Um,
Jesus. Okay. So how long were you on it for?
I took less than 30 pills in like 40 days. Um,
Wow. Okay.
I probably took like 28 pills in like a month and a half.
Hmm.
Um, so I was taking it, and I just remember like being like, because honestly kind of like the feeling of benzos. They kind of made me like
Sure. Yeah.
they made me relax, and they did help me sleep. So I was kind of like, ooh, is this like a way I can take them and like not have the risks, you know? Um,
Hmm.
but the like eventually caught up to me, and what started happening is that like let me think what started happening. So I started having like I think I tried to stop them. I would take gaps, like I would take like try to take like a day or two off, and
Hmm.
then some of those days I would. This was after like 3 weeks of just taking it for like 3 weeks, and I would stay up till like the sun came up, just like rolling around in bed, and then I would sleep till like set like 5 a.m. to like 7 a.m. Um, and then I think like the next day maybe I slept normal, and then it was like every other day I slept like 2 hours, and it was just like torture, like just hearing the birds chirp and the sun
Hmm.
come up, and like
Yeah.
I've never felt that before in my life. Like I've always been able to go to sleep, and it's like it's just torture. It's like agonizing. So I think, and then what happened? I think I tried to, so I was kind of like experimenting, trying to not take them and then taking them and stuff like that. And then I finally decided to stop completely in like May of 2021. And my birthday was coming up and I had a bunch of friends coming like 2 weeks later. And I tried to, so I put them cold turkey and my sleep was like still messed up. It was just like, it was getting maybe a little bit better after 2 weeks, but I was doing all this research and it was like, oh, like after 2 weeks, it's not a withdrawal, right? So in my
Mm-hmm.
mind, so I just said, okay, I'll just get back on the Ambien and then figure out later, like what, like maybe the sleeping problem is from something else, right?
And did it
Uh,
get better once you got back on the Ambien?
no,
Okay.
that's when stuff got really bad. So after I took the 2 weeks off,
Yeah, yeah, let's stop there for a second. So when you took the 2 weeks off, did you taper or did you just kind of you just stopped? You're like, I'm not taking this anymore.
I just stopped. I think at that point I had found like the groups in the Ashton manual, and the Ashton manual says you can cold turkey it. Um, or maybe I found it later. I can't remember when exactly. Because there was a time when I was like really trying to just scour the internet because there's not much about. They don't ever like compare Z drugs to benzos except for like in the Ashton manual.
Sure.
And
And I imagine you're on like 10 of Ambien, probably.
yeah,
That'd be like the adult male dose. Okay. So you went from 10 to zero. What happened in the first like 2 to 3 days after that?
are you talking about the first time the
Yeah.
time I tried for my birthday? It wasn't super bad yet. It was I had sleeping problems and like some anxiety.
Hmm.
Um, but it was mostly like really weird sleeping problems. Or maybe I was having anxiety, but I just attribute it to like the
Sure.
fact that I was sleeping is like freaking me out in the daytime. Basically I thought at that point my whole problem is I had like just this insane insomnia problem. Like
Okay.
I never had before. Because even before the Ambien, I would still sleep 7 hours. It was just weird times. It was like 3 to 10. And then
Sure.
like when I started taking the Ambien, that's when I started like having like 2 hour nights and like weird stuff like that, you know? So it just
Okay.
made it way worse within like 3 weeks.
All right. So you stop the Ambien, you have like really bad insomnia, maybe, and your anxiety is pretty revved up as well. You're hoping the insomnia is going to get better, but it's been like, 2 weeks, and so you're going, well, this is not withdrawal. I should probably get back on the Ambien, right? That kind of how it happened.
So it's been 2 weeks and I've like scoured the internet for
Yeah.
like insomnia support groups or just like I'm like, what is wrong with me? I thought I was gonna be like Michael Jackson and like end up staying up for like 60 days or
Oof.
whatever. I was
Yeah.
trying to figure out what was wrong with me because everything you find about insomnia on the internet is like just like super harmless, like oh just meditate or like just do this or like exercise. And like none of that stuff was gonna put a dent like in the insomnia that I had at that point.
Hmm.
Um so my friends were coming back and I decided my friends were coming for my birthday, which was in beginning of June, and I wasn't sleeping correctly. So I was like talking to my mom and talking to everyone. I was like, "What should I do?" And they were just like, "Oh, well, just get back on it. Like, it's not that serious, you know." So my friends came, and I took my friends were coming. And I think I took two one night because I like really wanted to sleep. Because I took one the night before, it didn't really help, and then I took two like the night before my birthday. Um, and the next day, just full blown like electrical, like complete chemical panic attack. Just like when I say words like panic attack, like people think of like a normal panic attack, but this was like just, just otherworldly. Like everyone knew something was wrong with me. It was like I was like just jittering and just like just I couldn't like like that like literally just like oh my god like stuff like that like just for
Yeah.
no reason. Um, and we're going out to eat that night. And I was like, okay, this is for sure Ambien withdrawal. And like I was thinking about just sending everyone home and like figuring it out on my own.
Mm.
I ended up just taking an Ambien like in the middle of the day to try to see if it would make it go away, and it did. Um, and then we went out that night and like drank a bunch, and then we were up till like 5 a.m. That was just because we were like partying and stuff, but I could feel the withdrawal kicking in like right around like 4 or 5 a.m. and I started fucking panicking again.
Okay, so
Um,
the interesting thing about your story is, okay, so you got off the medication and then you started 2 weeks later you started taking it again, but it was like those first two times you took it, like first one we only took one, didn't really do much, and then you took two one night, and that instead of calming you down, it seemed to have a paradoxical effect, like it almost flared up those withdrawal symptoms, right?
well,
Like,
no,
and
it was only till the next day. The withdrawal symptoms started the next day. So I took those two the night before my
and that was
birthday.
fine. You took the two, you were able to sleep, it was good. And then the next day, it like really hit, like once the drug wore off, like that
Yeah,
chemical panic attack.
like just like
Yeah,
noon, like
yeah.
just everyone, you look like you're going insane. Like it was just so embarrassing. Um, and so like one of my friends went home, and so I'm like scouring the internet, and I find like CBTI, and they're like, this has like a 93% chance of working. So I'm just like holding my breath that like this is gonna solve. I still am kind of like uncertain whether it's Ambien or not. I'm like maybe like I'm just anxious. Maybe it's just like insomnia. I don't know. I'm like kind of focused on the insomnia at this point because it's like really kind of scaring me to sleep like 2 hours and like not
And,
even be able
and
to do more.
just before we go into this, did you have any medical conditions or anything like that? Any other things happening in the background apart from the insomnia? Were you taking any other medications? It was like Ambien, like the only thing
That was
that
the
was
only thing.
going on. Yeah, yeah.
Fucking fantastic before that. Like
Okay.
just yeah, everything was great. Yeah, so then I get a hold of the CBTI coach, and she's just very like nonchalant about it, like, oh, it worked for everyone and blah blah blah. You can taper off them, you can do whatever you want, you can quit them cold turkey, whatever you want to do. So I do like I think like a rapid like 7 day taper or something, like not super organized, just like breaking off little pieces. And the whole thing is like just complete hell. Like it's not even doing anything.
Hmm.
Um, and then after that, I feel like I actually have like a diary of the sleep at that time, and it was like kind of it seemed like it was getting better like week by week. I still felt completely insane. Like I can't describe it. It's just like you feel like you're like losing your mind, and just like not sleeping and just like it's so hard to explain. I'm sure if anyone's watching this that's been through it, I envy those that don't know what I'm talking about. But
Hmm.
it slowly gets better, and then I don't know if alcohol did this or not, but somewhere after like 6 weeks, my sleep it like shifted again, and what started happening after that was I could go to sleep fine, but I would always wake up super early with like anxiety and like
Yep.
kind of like shuffling around, um and like just this crazy like anxiety and like kind of like in a daze all day, just kind of like apathetic and like depressed and like not well rested
I
and
hear I
like
hear that a lot. That people wake up first thing in the morning and it's just like it's like their nervous system is so wired, and the people that have it the worst, like on top of that, like full on, like I'm awake and it's like a panic attack kind of thing. That's when they have like the worst kind of neuropathy as well. They complain about like tingling and sensations and their heart's just like racing. And then it kind of mellows out during the day. It's interesting that that's what's happening like first thing in the morning. Yeah.
they're always the worst. No one really knows why, but it's just always been like that for me. Like I've always felt
Mm.
the bad, um and like throughout this whole thing, even when my symptoms have changed, it's always just been better. And I wish we
Hmm.
knew, like, but yeah, the mysteries, the unsolved mysteries of benzo protracted withdrawal. um So yeah, I like after that 6 weeks, it shifted into that, right? That waking up early, this weird depression, like it was, and the depression like seemed to be getting worse, and the anxiety, like little weird things would send me into like panic that just didn't before, like just like thinking like my partner is gonna leave me, or just like
Hmm.
just like panic attacks, like that just would never happen before. I went on like a carnival ride and I like had a full blown panic attack.
Whoa. Okay.
Like stuff that never bothered me was just like just super sensitive and just like
Hmm.
not really happy, not really like just like over consumed with like negative emotions. And then like somewhere around like October, I know this stuff sounds weird, but like I'm sure you've heard this with other people. Which was month four. I know other people like have said
Hmm.
this. It got way worse. Like I remember specifically, I don't know if this triggered it or not, but I ate like a pack of Oreos, like a bunch of them, and then this stuff started coming back where like I would try to sleep for like 2 seconds and just jolt awake. And then I was like waking up like every hour or every 2 hours throughout the night, like just completely like depersonalized, like
Hmm.
questioning, like I had this feeling throughout my body, like what is like your biggest fear? Like what's something that would just freak you out if it was like on your wall right now? Like a
Gosh.
giant.
I don't like clowns. I mean that's always been the thing. If like a full on like the clown from It or something like that walked through the door over there right now, I would like have like a heart attack.
Okay, so can you imagine like that feeling that would like be coursing through your blood? Like
Hmm.
if you that you would feel like a just like a shock of like just complete fear and like negativity. Like just it would just be so pure.
Terror. Yeah.
Yeah. I was feeling
Yeah.
that. I was feeling something like that like every 5 seconds, like just pulsating. Um,
And would you say at that 4 month mark, that was the worst you had ever felt, up like even withdrawing in the beginning from the Xanax, and then also withdrawing from the when you did the second discontinuation of the Ambien. Was that the worst you had ever felt, or was that kind of like similar to?
Different
Yeah.
because it was like when I was like in the first acute, I'd like shakes and stuff. I didn't have that. Like I
Yeah.
could relatively pull myself together and like kind of like fake normalcy during the month four somehow. Um, like during that acute, it was like very visible. Like you could barely
Okay.
see, but it was different. It was like I don't know. I guess I knew during the acute, like it was just so bad. It was gonna like get a little better. So it's just
Yeah.
different. Like
Because
it
that
seemed.
that's that that's the thing about the protracted withdrawal. It's like right at the start, you don't know. You're just like, okay, it was really, really bad now, but things are kind of easing off. And I think it's when you hit that first wave, right? And that can be
Yeah.
like 4 months later, and it's like, oh, I'm back to like the beginning again. What the hell is this? This isn't just some linear withdrawal anymore. There's something seriously wrong happening with me. I mean, it's really scary when that first one hits.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's scary because it's like you're completely alone. Like you're like, is this what's happening to me? And like you have to basically like not talk to people about it because the only solutions you're gonna get are like psych ward or like medication. And you already
Yeah.
like those are so you have to like hide it the best you can because
Hmm.
being involuntarily like sanctioned and put back on stuff again. Um
Hmm.
so yeah, during that time it was like just survival. I was just like I can't let people know how bad I'm doing because like I'll end up in a psych ward taking like more benzos against my will, or you know what I mean?
Or some Seroquel. The Seroquel
Yeah.
seems to be a big one. And did you know you had protracted withdrawal like then, like after that hit, were you like, I guess because you'd been in the communities a little bit after,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
I, I would say at that point I kind of knew I was like in for a long haul.
okay,
And I scoured the end of Benzo Buddies at that point. Like I think I've read
hmm,
like every post. So I deleted my account in like October, or I like shut it down for like 2 months. And then that's when I ended up like going on. I don't know if I should mention this on here, but yeah, I probably shouldn't.
Yeah. Hmm.
But I found other outlets that were probably even less healthy during those
Hmm.
months,
Hmm.
and it was just sheer torture. Just like I felt like I was losing my mind. I felt like I thought I was in hell. Like every 5 seconds, I was like, "There's no way this is like of this world." Like it's so bad that like I couldn't have even imagined this like before I went through it. You know what I mean?
Sure. And how
Um,
long did that wave last? Or I guess, yeah.
yeah. So what happened after in like January, February, and March? I started getting like some windows here and there. Like I remember this one specific time I was watching the X game, or what was it called? The Winter Olympics.
Hmm.
Um and like that guy Ayuma Hirano, he did like a
The
eight.
snowboarder, right? Who was like just crushing it from Japan. Was that
Yeah,
guy? Yeah.
yeah, I saw
Yeah.
that, and like I felt like something in my brain like woke up when I saw that, and I was like
Yeah.
felt like a human for like a night. I was
Hmm.
like excited about it, and then like I had a dream about it. Um, because before that I was just like a robot, just like a brain damage, like with the depersonalization and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
This is a good time to kind of do that. What were your symptoms like during that wave if you were going to kind of inventory the things that were kind of going on? I mean, sheer terror and dread,
yeah, just
depersonalization. Yeah.
yeah, chemical dread, like chemical terror, depersonalization. I felt out of my body. I was pacing, like just I just wanted to like just walk nonstop. Sorry, can you still hear me? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Um, Pacing, like just black depression, like anhedonia. Like I couldn't even listen to music. Like it didn't do anything for me. Like it. I don't even. It's so hard to describe. I'm sure there's other symptoms I can think of. I didn't have any of the physical stuff, but I was just like pacing and
Hmm.
just constantly thinking about dying, like just all the time, like just welcoming it, you know? Um, yeah, and then like around February, I kind of started feeling like certain things coming back. So that was like the 8 month mark, 9 month mark. I remember like I mean it wasn't consistent at all. It was like it would come and then it would go and then it would come back and then it would get really bad and then
Hmm.
um but I just remember like when the Ukraine war happened, I felt like I was like rooting for Ukraine. Like I kind of felt like a little humanness in there. Um, and like I think I was sleeping a little bit better. Like I would still wake up like frequently, but like I generally got back to sleep relatively easy. And then I felt like in March I turned like a really big corner. I still had other issues. It was like I think of it like a Rubik's cube. Like when you're in this, it's like your whole set of symptoms can just like mix up and like change,
Sure.
and sometimes it goes better and sometimes it's worse. But this time it got better, and I actually went out to California to do like a sales job with one of my friends, which I was really nervous of because I'm like I don't want to be like being around people is very uncomfortable in this, like especially like intimately, like in a hotel room, because your thoughts are
Hmm.
just crazy. But
Were
I went
you
out there.
were you working this whole time? Were you
I got
that
fired. I was working remote at a job that was like so in the beginning of it, the first like 6 months, I was working remote, but it was like a nonprofit state job, so like it was very lax, like very very
hmm.
lax. So I was able to kind of just skate by.
Hmm.
Um, Job I got fired from just because I was like the whole time I was like trying to work, I would just be like on Benzo Buddies and like other sites, like just like trying to figure out like is what's gonna happen, and just I was just completely like checked out of all that. Um, so yeah, they eventually
Hmm.
fired me. Um, but after that, that's when I went up to California, and it's like independent contractor work. So I was relatively free to like kind of make my own schedule and work how I wanted to. Um, and like stuff was getting like a lot better at that point. Like I still woke up like once, but I almost always went back to sleep like quickly. Um, my biggest issue at that time was like it was like from like 10 to like 5 every day. I would like just disassociate like outside of my body. It was weird. It was like clockwork. It was like at a certain time it would start, and I would like just feel like I was just like out of my body, and then it would like kind of end at like 5, and then like I had some good times during that time. Like surprisingly, like it happened like kind of quick that corner. And then yeah, so I was like doing fairly well out there. Um, and then I came back and I kind of like was dealing with like just kind of like some like medium like depression, and like I still had the sleeping issues that were I could kind of manage them. It was like maybe like 6.5 hours a night, and like maybe like one wake up, which I used to always sleep like 7.5 just straight through every night.
Hmm.
But I was like relatively dealing with it, and I was like kind of starting to like envision a future. I was also taking kratom. I forgot to mention that during this whole time. It's like a plant supplement. It's
Did
like
you find it was helpful?
not really. I mean, maybe just in my mind, it was like
Hmm.
uh, it's strong. I mean, it's kind of addicting too.
Hmm.
But oh yeah, so over that summer, this was like the year mark. Um, I wasn't in like a torturous place like I was before, but I wasn't like I was just kind of like I mean, a lot of it could have had to do too with like the disruption of my life, you know?
Hmm.
Like people are depressed when they're like, you know, in their early 30s, and they don't really have career aspects, or you know, they just missed like a whole year. They just like straggled
Sure.
along, you know. So like that could have been part of it. But I had like some depression. I kind of like disassociated here and there. It's kind of like bummed. Like it's kind of like I don't feel as like enthusiastic as I used to. I don't know. Just kind of like feel a little flatter. Maybe I think it might have been like the taking too much kratom, because that did get better when I quit that. But anyway, so what happened was
Hmm.
um I was kind of at a place that was like tolerable. Um and then we went to Europe, and then I came back and I had like this crazy internal abscess, and they were like I was freaking out because I was like bedridden for like 3 weeks, and just in excruciating pain. So I was trying to avoid antibiotics because like I've heard the horror stories.
Yeah.
This was October 2022. This was at 16 months. And like I quickly realized like I was gonna have to take antibiotics, or I was gonna die.
Hmm.
So I'm like in the hospital. I end up like going to the hospital, and I'm like texting everyone like, what should I take? What should I not take? Like just everyone in the community. And the doctors like just they didn't care what I had to say anyways. They just are just throwing antibiotic at me like,
Sure.
and I didn't have any issues with it. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention too. I also quit taking kratom in like early September. So maybe that's part of why I started feeling better. I don't know. But after I
Okay.
got out of the hospital in like October, like late October of 2022, I felt like pretty decent. Like I could have worked with that, you know? Like my dad came to visit me, and he was like he said I seemed like the happiest I'd ever been. I still had issues, but like
Hmm.
my sleep wasn't back to normal, but like I could feel like joy kind of again, and like I felt like I could probably work, like, and it was like it was pretty good. You know, I felt like enthusiasm again. Like when you're in this like the DPDR and all that stuff, you just lose like your humanity. You know, it's like you're a robot. Like you know when you look at art or when you like
Hmm.
when you see a movie, like or when you connect with other people, like when you're in this, all that stuff is gone. Like your brain just doesn't get like any satisfaction. Like it's just like that stuff is just shut off. So because you're totally disassociated like from your own emotions. So yeah, so and this is when I made the dumb decision. So I was feeling pretty arrogant and like I felt like kind of cocky because I got through the antibiotics without problems. And at the end of November of 2022, I started doing some. I did some street drugs, and they're like all cut with benzos now. And it was a high dose because like I blacked out on them. Um, so I wake up the next day and I'm like, ooh, okay, maybe I dodged a bullet, right? Um, I'm like, I kind of feel normal, like I'm okay. And then noon comes and I'm like, is this in my head or is this really happening? Like, am I going to go back into withdrawal? And then like 7 p.m. comes and I'm like fucking pacing again and like
Oh
freaking
no.
and like and then I was like, this is it. This is the moment. This is what I said. If this ever happened again, I was gonna end it. I was like, you did it. Like this is it. Um, because that was like kind of like a way to control it. You know, I was like, if this comes back, I'm not out. Like I don't deserve to deal with this again. Like no human should have to deal with this again. And no one should be able to tell me that I have to because no one's ever been through this before, you know? Um, so yeah, akathisia's back, waking up again every night, like 1 a.m., just panicking like for hours, fucked up, broken sleep. I think that night I slept 0 hours, just was just up all night. Went and walked my dog for like 20 fucking miles. And then like I was just getting like some windows here and there, but like I went to my mom's house because they thought they're like, oh, you relapsed on drugs, so they thought that was the problem. I was like, listen, we have way bigger problems than like
Hmm.
addiction. I've had previous addiction like 7+ years ago, and they still think that's like the worst thing that can happen to me, and it's like very clearly not.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so I go back there and I explain to them, I'm like, listen, if this does not get better, like I want euthanasia, like it's an option in Switzerland. And I tried to tell them how bad it was. And I was just like, you know, I was just like, they got to a point where like they were on board with it, you know. Um,
Wow. Oh my God. I can't
yeah,
imagine having that conversation. I mean, that was um I mean the level of suffering, right? And it's just mainly the akathisia, just like pacing nonstop, can't move, can't sleep. Like,
akathisia, complete, just it's such a horrible feeling. God, ugh. Like you're just always like, it's like if you had like zombies outside of your house, like 24/7, and like a serial killer like in the kitchen and you were like in the other room and you just have to like you're just waiting for them to attack. That's kind of how it feels. Just sheer like just chemical like just jolting through your body, just like you're just being attacked. But it's like beyond that, like because I've been in very scary situations and this was worse than that. Like this is like beyond what a brain can do, like without chemicals. Like I don't think a brain can do that to you
how
without
long
like
did this last, this period?
yeah. So that was November, and then it was really bad like that for a month. Um, and then basically what I've been dealing with since then is just like just crushing depression. Just like every morning I wake up, it's like I mean I'm glad that I don't have akathisia kind of stuff anymore, but just I still have some sleeping problems like I always have. But god damn, like it's just like so bad depression, like just complete chemical like depletion, and sometimes it gets better at night, like always, it's been about, so I've been kind of at that level for like 2 months now. Um, just dealing with like that really bad depression.
And when you say depression, I mean, depression can mean a lot of things. Like, is it, I mean, is it just that like feeling very apathetic, feeling very fatigued, lacking motivation? Is it, or is there a different kind of flavor to the depression that you're going through?
I would say it's apathetic. It's just like crushing sadness. I can't really explain it. It's like you can just feel your chemicals aren't like doing what they're supposed to do, you know?
Hmm.
Like my old self was like just always excited and like, very like um let's go do this, let's go here. I just wake up and I'm just like, why am I here? Like just total like sad, hollow, just like chemical. And then like just reflecting on the past 2 years, it's how, like how many different ways am I going to get fucking yanked around like this? It's like I don't even know like where I'm going to end up. It's like just the PTSD of it all is just. I mean, even
Hmm.
when I had to like just avoid before that stupid setback. I just had to avoid like any conversations about benzos, or it would just send me, because it would just take me back. And there's a lot of scary stories about setbacks. I mean, given
Hmm.
mine was obviously fucking stupid and I did it to myself, but there's people who like it very innocently take something, and it throws them back into it. But yeah, I don't know how to describe this depression, because when I say depression, right, like when you hear these things, like and from people in
Yeah.
protracted, you hear like
Yeah.
anxiety, insomnia, depression. You think you relate them to like what you felt, and like I can't compare any of this to like what I felt before benzo. It's so severe and so weird, and so like it's just like so otherworldly. Like these words aren't even like good. Like they're not even the correct words. Like
Sure. So what kept you going? I mean, what kept you from like booking a ticket to Switzerland, or taking things into your own hands earlier on?
um, I mean, I was probably just too afraid of dying.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, honestly, I mean, like, well, I mean, obviously, I think anyone who is in this is holding on that, like, they'll get back to something relatively good, and I did, but I fucked it up. But yeah, I mean that's what most people hold on to. But also, like the DPDR makes death seem like extremely scary, because it's like you don't even know what universe you're in.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. All right. So I guess, I mean, so that's your story. Here we are. So how many months out are we now?
I am 20 from the beginning or from the setback.
From the beginning.
I think it's about 20 months. I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
About 20 months. Okay. And do you feel like I guess, do you feel like your partner gets it? Do you feel like your parents get it and
No,
they're able to just kind of, no. Okay.
no,
Yeah.
no, zero
Yeah.
percent.
Okay.
Um, I mean, but if you talk to most people in this, I mean, some people have empathetic partners, but they still don't get it. They'll be
Hmm.
like, "What's wrong? Like, why are you having a bad day?" It's like every fucking day is a bad day. Like
Yeah.
the worst going on is this. Like um, I mean, they kind of get it. When I show them like some videos with like the doctors and stuff, they're kind of more like keen of to listen to what's
Hmm.
going on. But when I'm just like complaining like on a day-to-day basis, it's just kind of like if I were to be like if the way like you feel in this were to like manifest like in a physical sense, like if there would be like an equivalent, it would be like your leg like mashed into meat, right? And you'd
Hmm.
be like floor, like screaming, and everyone would be like rallying around you and like trying to help. but like since it's you can't see it, like you're just there, like just dying, like it's
Yeah.
like just invisible, like torture.
Yeah,
So
that's like the hardest thing about it because people are like, and then also I think the waves in the windows can be really confusing. One, you can't see how bad it is. And then someone might have a good day or a good week or a good month or something like that, or they're back to normal, but then the wave comes again and it's like, where did that person go again? Is this just them, you know, being depressed or maybe being, I mean, God, even lazy or just withdrawn or something? It can be like a real um, confusion for the people around you if they don't know about like the clinical course and how it kind of ebbs and flows. Um, yeah,
yeah, that's the yeah, like that's the hardest part about this too, is that like we have no guidance, and like stuff that applies to other things doesn't really apply to this. So like taking benzos once threw me into that. Like there's no other drug where like you would just take it once and you would be in torture for like a month. You know what I mean?
hmm
And I'm explaining to like my family, I'm just like, listen, like I just took, they're like, it can't do that from like taking it once. I'm like, yes, it can. Like the receptors are messed up. They're super sensitive, you know?
yeah.
Um,
It's really interesting. I mean, I was reading a case report about someone who developed, um, I guess, a brain injury from Lexapro. He was on it for a really long period of time, and then he came off and kind of somewhat recovered. And then a little bit later, I think he was on it for like a week or a couple of weeks, and just the re-exposure to it, even though he tolerated it for decades in his life, after that withdrawal, something had changed in his ability to do it. And not only did he not tolerate he ended up with some permanent neurotoxicity, which he's suffered from for years. And it wasn't after it being on the drug for a long time. And I hear in the benzo community, I hear a lot of those stories, like the kindling
yeah,
stories about how it gets worse. And I mean, that whole thing, I mean, from my recollection, and I might have to go and read this, the whole idea of kindling comes from alcohol withdrawal, where the more frequently someone has acute withdrawals from alcohol, the greater the risk that they'll have an actual alcohol withdrawal seizure eventually. And it's that idea that you kind of, it's this accumulative injury that eventually, um, yeah, when the next time you withdraw, you go into status epilepticus and, you have to get, um, you know, um, Ativan and all those types of things to bring you down. I think that's really interesting, the whole concept of kindling and how, your brain actually changes by going through these withdrawals and you being exposed to these drugs. And, people who tolerated them before in the past, they don't later on. That's also kind of a scientific curiosity for me.
uh, that's really strange too, because like no other drugs do that, right? Like when you go like when you go off and on like street drugs, it's like it's the same thing pretty much every time. And that another thing that adds confusion to like when you're trying to explain this to people, it's like, what do you mean you've taken these for 10 years? You've gone off and on them for 10 years. Why would it affect you now? You know what I mean? But it's
Yeah.
almost like turn like something like breaks, or like you turn some corner, and we don't know why or when that happens, but it just seems like for some reason, like there's just some point where you crossed,
hmm
and then you have this.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, all of that stuff is really interesting. I know when we talked on the phone before we set this up, we were talking about how, we don't think a lot of people have these problems on Ambien because it's not like a 24-hour thing. It's not like you take Klonopin, twice a day and you've got this 24-hour kind of benzo sort of acting on your system and causing problems. And maybe that's the case, that Ambien has like a 5-hour half-life and, it's just, maybe it's in your system for 12 hours. For 12 hours, it's completely gone. But I also worked with someone who was just taking Xanax at night. He just took milligram of Xanax at night and slowly over the course of the year kind of increased his use on it and then ended up with full on protracted withdrawal. And so eventually I was thinking also, it may not actually be like just kind of exposure in the body. It may be something about the serum peaks. So like Xanax, like it, I mean, if you've taken it, like it hits like, and it hits in like, 30 minutes or something like that. So you have this big serum concentration, which kind of spikes, and then it goes down really quickly as it leaves your body. So there may be something about this spike up here, this section, that is really causing, like causing the changes in the brain, because you're just like flooded with this GABA surge, and you may just need that kind of exposure, bam, at night, bam, at night, repeatedly, to change the biology in there enough that, when you come off it, it cannot compensate anymore. Things, it's changed. It's I'm always surprised about these different stories, and yeah.
Oh, I talked to a guy that took it for I think 7 or 9 days, and he's protracted over a year out.
Yeah, yeah,
One pill a day for 7 days.
yeah,
Oh God, that's
yeah.
just
Well, gosh, and well, I think this is really helpful. I think all stories are different. I mean, here you are 20 months out, and it's kind of your situation. You got this depression at the moment. Had a couple other people on the channel, and their stories are kind of, they're different, some worse, but I mean, they're all the same flavor of bad, really, and just chaos. But anything else that you'd like to kind of share, which you think you'd want, imagine you kind of at the start when you were like furiously reading through Benzo Buddies, and you're like lost, and you go, I don't know what to do. This is happening to me. What would you want to tell that person then, kind of right at the start?
you mean someone that's like already in withdrawal and like headed to protracted, or
Yeah,
like
yeah. So, I mean, obviously, like the person, yeah. So that person, because the message to anyone else would be like, don't take this long term.
yeah,
This thing is like a mess. But
yeah,
like you, right when you were like learning about all of this, and you were in the protracted withdrawal.
yeah. Well, I mean, I think I would tell people like listen to the Aston manual for sure. Even though or like be more safe than sorry. Like I probably could have done like some kind of taper, and been better off. But I think people tend to read these things and get kind of overconfident and just think that they're not gonna end up like others. But I mean, if you're in protracted withdrawal, like it can get better. Like even though I'm not doing great now, like I did get better, And don't do street drugs either. Those are not good. Um,
Okay, yeah, yeah.
but
But
yeah,
I had a guy on the other day who did like a 14-hour like ibogaine trip down in like Mexico, like incredibly intense, and he was saying it totally changed his ability to cope with his symptoms afterwards. It's
yeah,
just this crazy variety. And then I also have some people who drink, it helps. I have a couple drinks at night, it helps me get through it. There's no negative side effects. And then I have some people who drink one drink, and it's just like chaos. They've just triggered they trigger a wave. It's
yeah.
yeah,
That's like so. Just be better safe than sorry. Like
yeah,
I did dumb stuff the whole time. Like I drank at 6 weeks, and I kind of think that's what maybe that's what made it worse at that point. I don't know. Like just like just be safe. Like I was very like I'm not going to listen to these crazy people on the internet. But like, I mean, like, if you get your life back, it's like, is alcohol and all that stuff really worth it? But I mean, like I
yeah,
said, if it works for people, then like do it. I took kratom that maybe helped a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I just hope I can get back to like where I was before this setback, because I was doing pretty good. Like, I was kind of living like a normal person.
yeah.
So
And you will, because that's the course of it. So I'm pretty confident that if you give it enough time, you'll exit this wave. And I mean, I'm just basing that on my clinical experience. In the 40 or probably now close to 50 people who I've been working with over the last 3 years, kind of doing this. It's this ebb and flow. So if you just
yeah, I've heard I
Yeah.
don't want to scare people because like I'm not doing well. I would always hear stories of like, oh, like I'm at 20 months and I'm doing terrible. It's like, no, I got better, but like I'm just a fucking retard. Sorry, excuse me. Sorry. I am
Yeah.
beyond moronic because like you forget the pain. You know, like when people have babies, right? I mean, thank God you forget the pain, but when people have babies, right? Like it's so painful, but they say that if you remembered that pain, you would never do it again. If I could like push a button and be back to like that like 3 to 6 month mark, um, if I were to be able to do that like before I like risked it with stupid drugs, like there's no way I would have touched it
Yeah.
because like when it came back, like I was on my knees like begging for mercy, like like you
Sure.
know. So yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was going to say I guess the street drug upper or a downer that you took.
It was opiates. They're all
Okay, yeah.
yeah.
It's just and who knows what's in that. Okay.
Like I
Interesting.
yeah they cut it with benzos all the time now. It's yeah it's crazy. But
Yeah.
I felt like I was like because I got away with the antibiotics. I felt like that like healed some of the PTSD. So I was like, what if I just do something else? Will it make me less afraid of benzos? Like because after the antibiotics, I was like, wait, like I'm not afraid of like antibiotics anymore. You know what I mean? I felt like a little relief because I was like, I knew I was gonna have to take them at some point. So I think in
Hmm.
my I was like, if I do street drugs and I'm like really back to normal, right? Like then I really made it. I mean I already wrote off drinking completely, but I was like maybe I can really like really show them that I made it, you know.
Sure.
Uh, and I think we just have to accept that we're not gonna
You
like
have a
go back to yeah
sensitive nervous system, and that's just it, you know.
yeah
And I mean, the general advice is, I mean, if it's really important, I guess, for my patients and for people to try things, it's, you know, I wouldn't say jump in at the deep end. It's like, you know, if you really want to kind of bring something back in, it's just like tiny little bits, like right at the start, because you don't know if you're gonna like have a terrible time, and especially for my patients that have a lot of the pain problems. Whenever we bring in like Lyrica or gabapentin or these other things, it's at like the smallest doses, and we bring it up super gradually, because yeah, that does happen. You know, it's just this unpredictable nervous system, and sometimes they just do not respond well to things. Um,
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, sorry, I don't want to drag this on too much. I just had like just
yeah.
be like what yeah, how do you like what is like the how is it hard to deal with people like us? I mean, we are like nightmare fuel. Like we are like we get pretty bad. Like is it how do you like you know what I mean? And there's not a whole lot of like help for us. Like how do you go about like diagnosing and like what do you tell your patients? You know, I'm very like grateful that you're in the
Yeah.
trenches with but sometimes I
Well,
want
I mean, it's not easy always, and I get a lot of phone calls of people in waves when it's just chaos. You know, what do I do? Where do I go? You know, all of these things. So, I mean, the main thing I find helpful is it it it's really reassurance and kind of talking through options. It's like, okay, you know, this is bad. You know, you've been here before. You can survive this. You know, if you get really suicidal, then maybe you need to go to the hospital. But if you think that you're okay without going there, that's probably better. Um, and and then sometimes people need medication. You know, I mentioned this a lot. I have a patient who has such severe akathisia. He's essentially wasting away because he can't eat. And you know, this is someone who's on pain medication now and is doing a little bit better on that. And I also think working with coaches is really important. I mean, I recommend a lot of people to work with a coach. I think Jen is great, Chris Page is great. You know, there's a lot of people out there that can help foster the mindset that you need to kind of accept the fact that you're walking through a very dark and painful place for several years. And you know, what are the helpful thoughts to have, and you know, what are the not so helpful ones. So It it's not easy, and I will also say, you know, I get lucky because a lot of the patients that come to me, um, they've been in really bad places, and it's almost just like coming to the practice and seeing someone like myself or my wife who have a lot of experience do this. There's a lot of reassurance because a lot of that questions, you know, people don't have these questions that just kind of fester in their mind. Should I do this? Can I try this? You know, they just come to us and we can figure it out. They don't have to worry about, you know, are you gonna, you know, try and rapid withdrawal me or just like give up and just say, oh, I think we should just like taper you in a month. So I don't know. I feel like I'm a lot of the times I'm this big kind of container for you know, all of the catastrophic, you know, thinking, and they just need, it's okay, you can do this. You've gone through this before. This tends to get better. If it's not getting better, there's things that we can try. But for now, I think we should hang in here and just try and march through. We talk with family members a lot, trying to build them up to support I guess the person going through it. But yeah, it's not easy, and I get a lot of really long panicked calls pretty frequently, as I'm sure you can imagine.
Yeah, I have. I've
Yeah,
had my share of those.
yeah,
Yeah, like every coaching session that I ever had was just like an hour long panic attack.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I for your work. I really
yeah,
appreciate it. It really means a lot to people like us because we're just these unheard voices, you know, like doing it alone. And you know, hopefully, like people like you will like bring it to light, you know. And
I hope so. Yeah, yeah. I'm trying to, you know, build interest in it. And we've got some good groups out there. You know, the Alliance, they're really great. They're building up, you know, physician education. Dr. Jen is making a whole like physician and prescriber course on treating and recognizing protracted withdrawal, you know, bind. So it's the beginning. You know, I don't know. Yeah, we'll see. But there's a lot of folks like you out there. Um, so,
yeah,
but
I
yeah,
wish, but yeah.
yeah. Um, we should wrap now, but I just want to say thanks again for coming on, sharing your story. It's different than reading about it, you know, over several blog posts on Benzo Buddies, which is where most of it is. I think it's helpful to see a real person kind of, you know, go through these things and, you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, stay in touch, okay?
All right, sounds good. Have a good night.
Okay, thanks. Bye.